Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
So when did you realize that you wanted to be a teacher?
I've been here 17 and a half years.
So I've been teaching at Central for just 18 years.
Well, this is 29 years for me now. Let's go all the way back to birth, I guess. I was born in Japan.
It was a nice change.
I tell the graduating class, I'm graduating too.
Just great people to work with.
Welcome to Valley Vibes, your show about culture, arts, and happenings in the Imperial Valley from a youth perspective. I'm Dr. Tom Tackey, the creator and executive producer of Valley Vibes. The end of the school year is upon us, as is graduation and the start of new beginnings. This isn't just for our seniors. The end of the school year is upon us, as is graduation and the start of new beginnings. This isn't just for our seniors, but also for our teachers that are retiring. The dedication that our retirees have shown is considerable, and they have all provided a great deal of success to thousands of students. So, for this episode of Valley Vibes, I sat down with 3 retiring teachers from Central Union High School to talk about their careers and future plans. Welcome to Valley Vibes. Today is a special show in which we are talking to some upcoming retirees from Central Union High School. And I'm sitting here with Madaleine Macholtz. And
Well done.
Madaleine, say hello.
Hello. Hello.
Great. So you are one of the retirees for this year.
I am. It's exciting.
And tell us about, well, how long have you been at Central?
So I've been teaching at Central for just 18 years. I keep saying just.
Yeah.
That's like a career, right? That's like a teenage person, 18
Exactly.
years, right? So
It is, you know.
Yeah.
I look at it the
exactly.
very same way. I think I came in the year after you.
Okay.
I
right.
came in the fall of 2007.
Okay. Yeah,
And
that sounds perfect.
You
yeah.
were 2006.
I was.
Excellent.
Yeah.
No, that is. I mean, it's kind of cool when you look at it that way. That those kids were born.
Yeah.
And so was
Yeah.
your job here, and
Yeah.
now you're all graduating.
Right. I tell the graduating class, I'm graduating too, right? On to different things.
That's true.
Yeah.
Very
sad
true.
and it's sad and bittersweet and exciting all at the same time. So I feel a little bit like the seniors might, right? Trepidation, incredible
Sure.
excitement, sadness. The change in pattern, not seeing your colleagues that you have really great relationships with on a daily basis. So I'm filled with that same kind of thing that seniors are filled
Yeah,
with.
what's
I'm
next?
excited. Yeah.
That's so understandable because we can just get into that the routine. I mean, our days are different.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we're dealing with teenagers,
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
they're different all the time.
Yeah.
But it's when they're not around, then what?
Yeah, right. It's just a different. I mean, my dad has always said, my dad always said, hopefully you pick a vocation that's also your avocation. You pick
Sure.
a vocation or a field that you wake up and you can't believe you get paid to do those things, or that it's an amazing, you don't dread the days. There might be challenges, but there are always challenges in jobs, right?
Right, yeah.
So it's this. I look at it as I've taught in a couple of other places, and it's kind of like this life work in just a different place. So this life work that I've done here, the work that I've done here at Central, that's coming to a end as a teacher in the classroom. But then, the body of work for me as a teacher will continue, I'm sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, well, So you've taught at some other places. Why don't you tell us about your background? I know you're a science teacher
Yeah.
with kind of a specialty in
Environmental science.
environmental science, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, like, where'd you go to school?
Yeah. Okay. I can.
What got you into
That, yeah.
wanting to be a teacher? Right? And
So I'll go backwards in time, I guess. So I immigrated to the United States from the Philippines. My mom and my grandfather both got degrees at Boston University.
wow.
Yeah, my grandfather went to Boston University in like 1927, in the
Oh
middle
my
of the
gosh,
Depression.
really? Wow.
Yeah, so he's just phenomenal. So
And then he went back to the
and
Philippines?
he went back to the Philippines. He was a principal of a high school,
Okay.
tennis coach, biology teacher, history teacher. He did all those things.
So education's in your
It
in
is.
your
It's kind of in our
genes, yeah.
blood. My dad was a teacher, and so it's kind of in our blood. And I never really thought that I would do this thing. So I grew up in the Boston area. That's where we immigrated to. So I'm Boston born and bred. Kids joke with me because, like, the Boston accent is like, "Hey, where are my khakis?" And people will say, "Well, you're wearing them." No, those are his khakis. He's looking for his khakis. So
It's not too heavy anymore.
no. So I went to school for chemical engineering, and I worked in some international programs for the State Department for a while.
Okay.
And I never really, I did engineering for a while, but I really appreciated the way it made me think as a scientist, as an engineer. And then one thing turns to another, and I got a job doing international environmental education for a university that I went to school at, and they actually paid my grad work.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so when I finished my grad work, I was doing similar things, environmental education with doctors, with engineers. So I've really taught in a lot of different ways, but what's near and dear to my heart is the environmental sustainability area. And so in my travels, I had an opportunity to work in lots of different countries, and I have never, this area sits on amazing environmental resources, water, wildlife, geology, history,
Sure.
energy. And what I found was that a lot of people here aren't familiar with what's here and what it has to offer. And it's a binational community, so
Right.
but it's got all kinds of things wrapped up really well. So about 25 years ago, I had finished my jobs in Boston. And I thought, well, if I don't go now, I'm going to be an East Coast girl the rest of my life. So I came and I put together, I taught a couple of classes at IVC. I did some work at the Ivy Regional Occupational Program, doing environmental outreach to schools. So I kind of pieced together this environmental thing. I was teaching environmental science at IVC, and Emma Jones, a former principal here, during spring break, because my husband used to teach here. He used
Right.
to teach math. So we were unpacking something over spring break or something, and she yells across the quad, "You should come teach environmental chemistry here." And I yelled back, "I don't know about those high school students." And she said, "Well, just apply." So we had this conversation across the quad. And I'm accustomed to teaching adults and professionals and college
Yeah.
students. And coming to this, I wasn't really sure if it wasn't for Mr. Smith, who just made me feel really, really welcome and helped me laugh off the day, and my husband, so I could send students to the buddy room in those first, right, in the first
Yeah.
first semester, the
Oh,
transition.
no fooling. Yeah.
And I thought, I'm not going to make it. But then eventually something clicked in my head. It was like, they are so incredibly funny as this time in their life, right? They're
Yeah.
trying to be all this. They're trying to be adult, but they're not. They're about 4. And you can see these changes happen to them. And I think that's what I fell in love with them. I mean,
Yeah.
it's this thing, like you can see a change in them from day to day, from semester to semester, from year to year. I see kids now who graduated 4 or 5 years ago, and I can see the change in them. And I just love that. I love to be I feel really honored to be part of that ability to see them change.
Right.
It's so amazing. It's just
it really
wonderful.
is. That's
They're resilient. Their potential. At first they don't see their potential, and then they do, and then they squander it, but then they recover it. I mean, they're just such this ball of amazing energy.
That's
so I love
true.
it.
And that I would echo that almost exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's those ones where, as I told Dan Myers, it's like when you see those that were kind of unmotivated for a while,
Right.
all of a sudden the light switch goes on,
Yeah.
and they put their own spin on what
Yeah,
you're doing, and that makes it
absolutely.
worth it.
Yeah,
if it's just to
absolutely.
spew out the answers to the test, I mean, whatever. Come
right.
on.
That's not it.
That's we're trying to get them to be productive adults.
Right.
But
Be more.
I find that really interesting that you found the Imperial Valley
Yeah.
because of the environmental issues
Yes,
and importance
absolutely.
of this place.
And absolutely, maybe as fate would have it, the Imperial Valley found me
Okay.
because my grandfather's brother used to farm up in Nyland. We still have land up there.
Oh, all
So I
right.
sort of grew up here, spending the summers here.
Oh my gosh.
When I was like 7 to 14. And I think my parents loved me, but they sent me here for the summer. So I have to kind of look at that a little bit, maybe talk to someone about that. Anyway, so I've had a long history here. They used to farm up in Nyland, so they grew tomatoes and other specialty things, zucchini. So it kind of refound me in my profession, right? It was this
Yeah.
really great opportunity to get to a place where I honestly didn't know anything about it except for the resources here.
Right.
But it was sort of this, I'm going to say that it found me again.
That's cool.
Yeah.
My students are involved in a project with KPVS right now where they are we're producing a podcast series for them. And one of the podcasts is What Are You Doing Here?
Oh,
And it's about, the kids
That's
that
fun.
have moved here and aren't really from here and how they
Yeah.
acclimate and such. I mean, you would be the perfect,
Sign me up.
So what are you doing here?
yeah, that's
But you have told us.
perfect.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's so cool.
Yep, I
So
feel really lucky.
18 years at Central. What's next?
I don't know. Well, I do know. There's going to be travels with my husband and my dog. We spend a lot of time up in Colorado,
Okay.
and we do a lot of hiking and just being out. It's an amazing perspective when you're out on some peak and you can just see forever. It just makes you realize that we're really small
Yeah,
in the
that's
big
true.
picture.
Yeah.
And there's something amazing in the smallness, right? I mean, we live our lives, but there's so much more out there that defines all the things that are around us. So we'll do that, and then we have some hopes to do some other traveling. I'd love to be able to say that I've been in all of the Major League Baseball fields.
How many to go?
Well, I haven't even. Okay, I've lost count, but I think I have 8.
All right.
So I still have a few,
yeah.
right? So I
Yeah.
have 8. I think the last time I counted, and then I don't mean to think that I'm doing all these lists, but I would love to be able to see at least one national park of every state, right?
Sure.
And I think I'm a little higher on that list for that, but.
Okay.
So there's all these experiences that I can't wait to have.
That's
But
interesting.
we'll see. Yeah.
I'm trying to think if, the national park thing, I've been to a lot of them here in the West,
Yeah.
certainly.
Yeah. But then
I'm going to
there's
have
some
to really think about it. And there's some really
there's
little
some
ones.
really little ones. Then
Yeah.
they're kind of obscure, but really interesting. And then there's also national monuments. And
Yeah.
I was driving across country and I stumbled upon the national grasslands of Kansas.
Right.
And so you could, grass as high as right up to your
Sure.
chin, like 3.5 feet. But you could still see the ruts in the in the grass.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, where the wagon trains went.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's so much in this world to see. So I'm excited.
I grew up on a farm in north central Montana.
Yeah.
And our land, my parents broke the prairie up, but I picked rocks, forever and ever because it was at the edge of a glacial dump, basically.
Yep,
So,
right.
But thousands of teepee rings.
Yeah.
Thousands and thousands of teepee rings everywhere.
Really?
It's like so they'd have these large rocks that held the sides of the teepees down.
Nice.
And
See, I love that. I love
it's-
when you can see the history in the
yeah,
landscape.
it's still there.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like you
it's
said,
amazing.
it's like the ruts,
Yeah.
the rings. It's
And what is that? 125 years ago, 100 and that's 150 years ago. That's significant.
it is significant
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. I don't know. So I'm excited to explore all those kinds of things.
Well, it's going to be really fun. I mean,
Yeah.
national parks, baseball stadiums.
Yeah, I don't know if I have time to be retired with all those
Well-
things on my list.
It sounds like it's going to be a retirement well spent.
Yeah, I hope so.
So.
I hope so.
All right. Well, Madaleine, thanks a lot
Oh, yeah.
for
Thank
for
you, Dr.
coming
Tacky.
in. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, loved it. Thank you.
Welcome to this segment of Valley Vibes. I'm here with Cristina Plancarte, another one of our Central Union High School retirees. So, Cristina, how are you?
Fine, thank you. A little nervous.
Really? Wow, there's nothing to be nervous about here. We're friends, and this is Valley Vibes. So, you are a Spanish teacher here at Central, right?
Yes.
And how long have you been at Central?
I've been here 17 and a half years. And I started it in January, so that's why they count it as a half.
Interesting. Interesting. So 17 and a half. So you started in January of what?
2008.
Okay. That's all right. I've got a half a year longer than you do
Oh,
here.
you
Wow, that's interesting. And great that you got in on the half year. That's kind of unusual.
Yeah.
But so what did you do before being at Central?
I was teaching at San Diego High School for 19 years.
Wow.
So I graduated from Calexico High School, and I went to San Diego State, and I stayed in San Diego for my BA, my master's, and then I started working at San Diego High School. So I was there for 19 years, and then when my daughters were almost 3, I was like, I have to go back. I have to be closer to the family. So that's when I applied, and I was so lucky that there was a position at that point.
Wow.
And I got it.
I
So
can't
I've been-
believe that you've been a Spanish teacher for, what,
37
36?
years.
37 years? That's
Yes.
nuts. I that's hard to believe. But
Yeah.
so how was that? Well, I mean, you were coming home, but how was the transition from San Diego High to here?
It was very easy because the population is very similar.
Mm-hmm.
San Diego High has a lot of kids that come from Mexico. We were teaching Spanish for Spanish speakers because we have a lot of Spanish speakers.
Yeah.
So when I came here, it was very similar. The population and the type of classes that I would teach, that I'm teaching, are very similar to what I was teaching over there.
Wow.
So, and I was closer to my family, and it was a nice change. It wasn't very dramatic or difficult.
It's always great to be able to bring your kids back and
Yeah.
closer to grandparents and
Yes, cousins and
Yeah.
aunts and uncles, and
yeah, that's
Yes.
a big deal for kids. I think it's really good for them to be around their cousins.
you know what? If I heard it from them, from my daughters, they are happy that they grew up with their cousins, with their family.
Yeah.
At the beginning, we stayed in my mom's house, and there were like a lot of people in the same house. So for them, it was fun. So that's what they remember.
For them, it was fun.
It was
huh?
fun. Yes.
Wow. So when did you realize that you wanted to be a teacher?
When I started at San Diego State, I thought I wanted to be an elementary school teacher. So I started taking classes. But I took like 3 different classes, and I realized that I didn't really like those classes. I didn't like the idea of teaching math to teach math to kids or things like that. So I started taking literature classes in the Spanish department, and I fell in love with literature. To me, it was fascinating. It was very interesting to learn about. It was the history and the stories. So after a few classes, I said, this is what I want to do. I want to teach literature. I stayed for my master's. I did my master's in Spanish American literature. So I still read. I was teaching Spanish, AP Spanish literature this year, and the kids were great. And that's something that I hope I continue doing in any way. Just like I told you, my nephew in LA, he used to tutor for kids who took the AP and other exams. So I'm looking at options, and I see that as an option still. Maybe still being involved in literature in some way.
Very cool. Very, very cool. So what all classes have you taught here at Central?
What classes?
Yeah.
What levels? I'm teaching Spanish 1. I have taught Spanish 2, Spanish 3, Spanish 4, AP Language, and AP Literature. So all the levels.
All levels, all classes. And that's
Yes.
fabulous. You know, how was it during the COVID years? How did you do with that?
It was hard.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't go back. I mean, given the option of teaching from home, I wouldn't do it. It was really hard. It was hard to have the students participate. Sometimes because the students could have their cameras off, we never knew if they were there.
Right.
So not for language classes. Maybe other subjects didn't suffer as much. I don't know. But for Spanish, I think it was really hard.
I can imagine that whole. I think you need to have a little closer connect for language class. I would
Yes.
agree. I mean, I could see where it could work, but it's like, no, you really need that face to face, and I think a lot of teachers did struggle through that, and almost the forgotten years, I suppose. But did you find once we came back that your students were really happy to be back in the classroom and giving you a little bit more, or was it
I don't
hard
know.
to get going again?
It was hard to get going because I think they were used to something else. So they were in junior high maybe when we started. And then at the beginning, you had to tell them, like, take out your paper, take out your pencil. We're ready. We need to start working. And for them, I remember those days, like, how many times are we going to tell them every time they come in, take out your paper, take out your pencil? It was, I think it was not expected, or I don't know what happened during the pandemic, that when we came back, it was like they were very laid back, like, what are we going to do, but not really expecting to do anything.
Right. And so I suppose your classes, you have a lot of freshmen and sophomores?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So they really didn't get that closure from middle school. I can see that. It was. I know for us in the performing and fine arts, for some it really took off because they were hungry and they were ready to be doing that type of stuff again. Particularly like with our rock combo. I think a bunch of those guys stayed home and played guitar for 2 years.
So they got back really ready.
They did. They really
Yeah.
did. But I think for classes such as yours, it would be. It's almost like you're teaching 7th graders. You know?
Yes.
Very much. Wow. But so what are you thinking of after retirement?
I'm going to take it really easy. So I'm planning for the summer. And then for the summer, I have a plan. I'm planning a trip to Pakistan.
Wow.
But because of the recent events, we don't know if it's going to happen. You know what happened? There was
I hadn't heard. What?
India and Pakistan are fighting each other. So
Okay.
there was some bombs exploding in different places. So we're waiting to see what's going to happen. On June 31st, 30 or 31st, we have a meeting to decide, like to finalize it, if we're going or not. And then we're going to go for 3 weeks. And I have other plans for traveling during the summer. But after that, in September, I plan to really stop and think, okay, what am I going to do? First, I'm just going to take it as a regular summer.
Wow.
And enjoy the summer.
Wow.
Hopefully.
Why Pakistan? What prompted a trip to Pakistan? What's
My
your interest?
sister works with a doctor that it's from Pakistan, and
Okay.
they have been inviting her for several years. And we thought it's a great opportunity because to go with a family that it's from there, speaks the language.
Right.
I mean, I think we're lucky.
I think that could be just a really fabulous trip because
Me too.
we always hear about different countries that people don't ordinarily travel to maybe, or they get a bad rap for whatever reason. But then when you meet people that are from there and you see the pictures and have the food and stuff, it's like, wow, I want to see that place.
And you know what? Being from Mexico, I understand it perfectly
Yeah.
because a lot of people are afraid to go to Mexico. And I understand there's a lot of things going on, but I have also traveled to Mexico City, to Chiapas, to many different places, and we had never had anything happen to us. So I understand the idea of
Yeah, there's probably more propaganda than not. And I mean, you do have to be cautious. Don't get me
Yes,
wrong. But
yes.
it's like in 2012, one of our colleagues and I went to, we rode our motorcycles down to Honduras.
You told me, yeah.
Yeah, and before we left, that people were like, "Oh, don't go, that that it's too dangerous," and it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, just shut up."
Well, we do want to make sure we're going to be safe. We do want to
Sure.
make sure that there's a ceasefire with everything that happened.
Right.
We're not going to go if we feel like we're going to be in danger. But if everything settles and the family thinks that it would be okay and that the places we're going to visit are going to be safe, then we're going to continue with our plans.
That just sounds exciting.
Yeah.
I bet that's a long plane ride, though, huh?
Yes, I think we have one stop in Istanbul, I think.
Okay. That's a city I'd like to visit. I would like to visit Istanbul. There's just so much of the world that I haven't seen that I would love to.
Me too. I love to travel. I travel a lot, but there's so many other places to visit.
Absolutely. That is just so amazing. So, what are you going to take from your time here at Central? What do you have any seriously fond memories?
I have a lot of memories. I don't know. I'm going to take all of them. my time with my colleagues and my students. There's always those students that say something or do something that makes your career or your work worth it. It could be anything, any day when they make a comment about they're liking the class, or they ask you about a book that you read or something that makes it special. And I think that hopefully that's not going to stop. Hopefully I find something to do in the future that has to do with dealing with literature, because that's what I love about what I do, and teaching the language. So this morning, my nephew, who works as vice principal and coach in Los Angeles, he sent me an email saying, "Tia, I need your help. I'm going to be coaching 2 Spanish teachers, and can you help me with this, and this?" So I'm like, oh, that's nice. I'm going to be out of this school, but I could be helping him figuring out what he needs to do with his teachers
Yeah.
in his school. So
That could be a nice little
Yeah,
side hustle,
you know what,
kind of
when
consulting
he-
type of thing. Sure.
when he said, I need to help them develop their curriculum and I was like, oh, let me help them. Let me do something. So I don't know.
That sounds like a good direction. Well, I really appreciate that your time that you came in here to visit with us, and wish you all the best in
Thank
your much earned retirement.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. It wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be.
Oh, of course not. Welcome to the next segment of Valley Vibes. I'm Dr. Tom Tackey, and today we are visiting with the retirees of Central Union High School, and it's a real joy that we have Mr. Dan Myers here with us today. Dan, how you doing?
Good, thank you.
Dan, how long has it you've been in the district?
Well, this is 29 years for me now.
29.
Right.
Wow.
And and I got started kind of late, and I was already in my 40s when I started. So,
Really?
Yeah. So I'm an old guy already.
So you're a math teacher, and you've kind of probably taught all the math courses all the way across the board, I
Pretty
suppose.
much. Yeah.
And but starting in your 40s, so tell me a little bit, or tell us a little bit about where you're from and how you made that transition into teaching.
Okay. Well, let's go all the way back to birth, I guess. I was born in Japan, and
I didn't know
in
that.
Yokosuka, Japan. Lived in because my father was Air Force. He was Air
Okay.
Force. So I was born there and a U.S. citizen of birth. But came over to the States, different family, came over to the States when I was 4 and grew up in San Diego. And I had lived in Yokohama over there, and that's the sister city for San Diego.
All right.
So that's kind of coincidental. But anyway, I grew up in San Diego, went to Mission Bay High School, and in Pacific Beach. So I was a beach rat all those years. That was my neighborhood. There was the ocean, and so this was quite a departure from that out here.
Yeah, no fooling.
Yeah, big time. But
Well, we have a lot of sand.
yeah, Heber Beach, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I grew up there, and then in when I graduated from high school, one of my ideas of what I would do would be to be a math teacher. But I was in the restaurant business for all through the 70s and 80s and into the first half of the 90s. So kind of took a little departure there. And but I decided at one point I wanted to make a switch, after 20 plus years in the restaurant business to go back to education. So I went back, finished up my math degree, at a ripe old age, and got my
Wow.
teaching credential, and came out here.
Did you start doing restaurant stuff in high school? Were you doing
Yes.
kind of
Yeah.
flipping burgers or something?
Yeah.
of that
Well,
sort?
I worked as a busboy in a restaurant in Pacific Beach.
Okay.
In a private owned restaurant, not a chain. And then I in the 70s I worked in the restaurant called the Bratskeller, which was a big restaurant. They had it was overlooking La Jolla Cove, and they had one there, and they had one in Denver, and one in San Francisco, Ghirardelli Square, one in Chicago,
Yeah.
one in L.A. And there was a big deal, and we used to have a lot of the UCSD staff, and I'll come down quite a bit down to the, La Jolla area to the restaurants there. And then I ran a little Italian restaurant for about the last 10 years in La Jolla also.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. That's a big jump. So you just did you kind of burn out on the restaurant thing, or?
Yeah, I was either go into business for myself, do a restaurant or something of that sort, or go back to my original plan, which was education. So I thought, this is a good time to do it, and I really, when I started doing the mathematics again, I was enjoying it. So I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Let's get this done, and so I did that. I went back to San Diego State, got my math degree, and my teaching credential in the 1 year, and then came out here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So was it like, where'd you do your student teaching?
Well, my student teaching I did at Scripps Ranch High School, and then also a middle school across the freeway from there.
Okay.
At the time, I was living in Escondido, which is North County.
Yeah.
And I worked in La Jolla and went to school at San Diego State. So I was driving this triangle, and
You probably had a fine car too, huh?
yeah. I don't remember whether I had the Volkswagen or the Nissan Sentra. Anyway,
All right.
that was
Well, everybody
falling
had a
apart.
Sentra back then, Wow. So then, was you arrived down here? How'd you get here? It's always kind of interesting. Like if you're not from here, people are kind of say, well, he's not from
Right.
here.
Right.
How'd you end up here, Dan?
Well, I applied to different places. I had the guy whose restaurant I ran, the Italian restaurant. His wife was a special ed teacher in Poway District, and so I applied there, and she was trying to pull some strings to get me in there, and I applied with San Diego City Schools, but I saw an ad in the paper for El Centro. Well, I had one of the guys that worked for me at the Carino's. There's not the corporation Carino's, but
Right.
it's separate Carino's Italian restaurant. One of the guys that worked for me, he came out here. He got his degree right before me. Came out here and taught at Imperial for a year, and then went back. And he had told me about out here, and so when I saw this here, I go, oh, I think I'll do that. So I came out for the interview, and they didn't need math teachers; they needed science teachers.
Interesting.
So Mr. Rosas and myself, it turns out, both math majors, got hired as science teachers that year, and with the provision that if something opened up, both of us said, yeah, want to switch over to math because that's our field. But yeah, I taught a year of physical science.
Fun.
Yeah.
Fun. Yeah, because it's like, our friend Bob Fuller, he told us last year about how he ended up out here. It was a deal where, he was at a job fair, and the shortest line was at Central Union High School district's, table, and he went over there and basically got hired on the spot. So, man, you said 29 years.
Yeah.
That is just crazy, Dan.
When doing the interviews for the job here, they were, I think, like I said, they pretty much hired up right on the spot, without hesitation, because they were in pretty dire need for some science teachers, and we happened to have, I guess, math was close enough to science and had lots of science classes, biology, physics, and basically that's what the physical science class was anyway.
Right.
So doing that that helped in getting the position, and also I had with the San Diego City Schools. There's such a big district that, getting hired by them, you don't know, you don't have any guarantees. They say, well, okay, we can't really know for sure. It might be a week before school starts. It might be 2 weeks after school starts,
Right,
And
yeah.
we don't know if you're going to be in in East San Diego, southern, south or north, or, where you're going to be. So you have no idea and not able to plan. So I had a number of people that I knew that were with the San Diego City Schools and said, if you can find something else, that's what you want to do.
Right.
This is too big.
So you ended up down here. That had been just a massive change in terms of climate, at least. I mean, you like you said, you're kind of a hippie beach rat.
Yeah.
Of sort,
Yeah. I swore this. I don't know if I should say this or not, but I swore my first year here. Man, this is the armpit of the world.
Yeah.
But because my first year it was very humid. There was an inch thick of the crickets
Yeah.
here, and lots of dust and wind, and it was hot, hotter than I'd ever felt before in my life, more than like for a couple hours passing through. It was just unbearable. I thought, this is it. 1 year and I'm out of here. And but the funny thing is, after the first year, I had so much fun with the science department and the people in the department. They were such good people that I really enjoyed, that part of it, the
Yeah.
camaraderie. And then switching to the math department, same thing, just great people to work with. And the people out here as well, and it's just a little slower than San Diego. I didn't have to worry about traffic,
Yeah.
and except for driving, to and from San Diego on the weekends, because I went back there quite a bit back then. But yeah, it grew on me pretty quickly, actually.
And that I see is really a common theme with a lot of us that didn't start out here in our careers. We come in and we find that it is the people that get us to stay here.
Right.
Exactly. It does have a different feel. It's a good feeling, and we can't complain about that. And then especially when I think about like your subject matter, that's one of those that the kids are like. It's almost like the dentist, Nobody wants to go to the dentist, Nobody wants to go to math class,
Yeah.
except you math nerds,
Right.
And but by and large, you have all those kids that are, they have whatever math anxieties, or whether they're, actual or learned, who knows? But how do you insulate yourself from that?
Gosh, I don't know. Some classes I really needed to approach them with kind of kid gloves, and
Yeah.
and especially like if we had kids that weren't ready for Algebra 1, we had a class that was Math A and B that helped prepare them for that, and I actually enjoyed that class because I had some kids that really blossomed and then went into Algebra 1 later on after a year of that with a lot more confidence.
Yeah.
And we don't have that anymore here, unfortunately. But
It's great just to see when the light turns on and they start to get it. I mean, that's one of the things in our profession, I think, that keeps me coming back.
right. And then other classes that I had, it's been, of course, at the other end of the spectrum, the AP Calculus, you got your top kids in there.
Yeah.
So that's always keep you on your toes in a different way, because they can challenge your knowledge a little bit.
So, Dan, like I say, 29 years is a crazy amount of time to be in a profession, let alone one place. And what's next? What are you going to do for retirement?
Oh, the other day, this last week, we all wore in the department's math and science. We all had our T-shirts on. There was my retirement T-shirt, and what it said was "Time to relax," and that's exactly what my first thing is going to. First objective is to relax and not worry about anything. Just enjoy relaxation and getting lots of sleep, and see how that does in terms of in terms of health. And to see if that makes a difference. And then from there, see how much energy I have left to enjoy, seeing the world a little bit.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
That sounds really good. Well, Dan, we really appreciate you coming in today, and congrats on such a long career here. That's,
Well, thank you. Thank you.
It's inspirational to those of us that are a little bit behind you. So
Well, I've had a lot of good mentors and colleagues here that have helped me get to the 29 years. I didn't think I was going to earlier, but just stayed on a few more years, and after now, since I've been working since about 1967, I figure it's time to call it quits.
Well.
enjoy the rest of relaxation.
that's fantastic.
So,
All right.
you.
Thanks, Dan.
All right. Welcome.
This program was produced and brought to you by Spartan Sound Productions. Special thanks to our guests, Madaleine Macholtz, Lorraine Padilla, and Dan Myers, who are all retiring from Central Union High School in a couple of weeks. Thank you all for your years of service. Thanks also to Dr. Thomas Tacky, creator and executive producer of Spartan Sound Productions, the administration of Central Union High School, Mr. Javier Fimbres, and Power 98 for hosting us, and to you, the listeners.